Jonathan Bhagan. So let's talk about it. Glad to finally have you on. So I saw your video, your Facebook video, a couple days ago about the embargo that Trump placed on Venezuela. So what does that mean for us now?
Well, just let me quote here from apnews.com. Well, he doesn't call it an embargo. Just quote it. It says the biggest impact will probably come from secondary sanctions that could have a devastating effect on Venezuela's economy. The Trump administration can now punish foreign governments and businesses that help Maduro stay in power from doing business in the United States. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton put it in stark terms. Do business with the Venezuelan government and you will be barred from the United States.
Shit. Okay, so and the biggest deal we have going on with them right now is the Dragon gas line.
The Dragon gas deal, and there's also they have, well, if you follow, I'm not a diplomat per se, but diplomacy is a lot of subtle hints, and it's like you're bluffing in a game of cards. The US has been hinting that they're very, very unhappy with our assistance to Venezuela, and we've been apparently assisting him financially with I can't recall exactly, but essentially I've been trying to build a relationship with the US Embassy here. Last time I talked with them, they were very pissed at our government.
Really?
I'm not gonna say who I met with, but they're very pissed.
But did they give any reasons why, or any idea why they this upset?
Keep in mind Maduro. Keep in mind the state of foreign affairs in the world. We're basically in a second Cold War. We have Russia. Trump just suspended the INF, the Intermediate Nuclear Weapons it's an anti-missile treaty. Suspended that with the Russia recently. So we're in the middle of one nuclear arms race with Russia, a trade war with China. We're in a second Cold War right now.
So I didn't even think about it like that.
That's the problem with Trinidadians. We don't think, and we don't have thought leaders. Well, the thought leaders we have, they ignored.
I think we don't think about where we are on an international stage. We just sort of look at ourselves as, old dusty corner of the world, How is this really going to affect us in Trinidad? And even if it is going to affect us, what can we really do? So does it even make sense to pay attention? So is there anything an ordinary citizen could do about this? Or is there like a petition they could develop to, I don't know, for the government to make certain moves to make sure that we're not put in bad situations where we will be affected poorly?
Well, yes. I mean, look, if you look at what Hong Kong is doing now, there are millions of people protesting in the street for because as you know, Hong Kong was originally a British colony, and when they got independence from England, they didn't go completely into the Chinese system. They're the same country as China, but they have a democracy in Hong Kong. So to preserve that democracy, the people went out, all the lawyers went out into the street to protest. The people are protesting by the millions. In Trinidad, I wouldn't say democracy is under threat, but the level of incompetence with our foreign affairs situation. Like I'm friends with ex-diplomats. They would say on both administrations, because of nepotism, they keep putting stupid people in place. We now have a bunch of diplomats internationally who don't know what they're doing. And our foreign policy, we have basically sided with the enemies of the United States, even though we say, Stuart Young will go and say we are neutral.
Yeah, because Venezuela is also tied to Russia as well.
And China.
Right. And we have this Labrie dry dock they want to put in, where we're going to borrow a few $1 billion from China again to build it. So we have a lot of, and then is the Carib interchange being built by Chinese?
Yeah, that's China Railway Corporation.
And then Sinohydro was the next Chinese company that built the wastewater treatment plant in Malabar. So that's 3 massive projects. The Malabar wastewater treatment plant that opened up earlier this year. So that's one project just completed, one project going on, and one mega project going to start.
The Arima Hospital was China Railway as well, and the hospital.
The Kuva Hospital, yeah.
And Arima Hospital is a Chinese corporation. So, of course, they're not going to beat up as much about China, but Venezuela is a hot target for them. So, if I were a concerned citizen, an intelligent, concerned citizen who's not brainwashed by Philip Alexander or the UNC or the PNM, I would write to my MP and let them know that the state of foreign affairs in Trinidad and Tobago is so atrocious. If it continues, I'm not saying it will happen because we all know Trinidadians, like, at the last minute, we will pull a rabbit out of a hat and say, "Oh gosh, we understand. We're not gonna fight Trump."
Yeah.
But we're on the road right now, and we need to change course.
Yeah, and then the problem I have is that when we need to make a lot of these last minute decisions, it's sometimes used as an excuse to, I don't know, to make bad decisions. You know, like but what was the whole thing that went on with Petrotrin, where they basically closed down Petrotrin with absolutely no plans for a supply to come in. So, you know, we were like down to the wire, and I really need to look up to see what happened with that, because I think I forgot what happened after. You remember what happened? They closed on Petrotrin, and they needed to get certain shipments of diesel and fuel into the country by a certain date before we run out. And I think they ended up getting into like a lot of agreements that could have been negotiated better, but just weren't because of the time constraint.
Yeah, and it's a lot of bad planning. I had a good discussion with well, I think he wouldn't mind if I called his name. Afro Raymond.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get him on sometime.
You just message him. I'm sure he'd love to be here. So he pointed out to me that, well, he's into finance and procurement and all these things. He pointed out to me Petrotrin's they have a $9 or $8 billion US debt. Early into the PNM administration, call member, say Petrotrin's debt was at like 8%. I'm not quoting exact figures because it's from memory. And Qualm had access to US bonds of a couple $1 billion at like 5% at a lower rate. So what should have been done is that you should have renegotiated Petrotrin's debt at a lower rate years before the crisis happened. I mean, I'm not saying it's Qualm's fault, because this was Petrotrin's mess is 30, 40 years in the past of mismanagement. But it's one example of it could have been done better.
I think a lot of things could have been done better. I think a lot of things could be done better. Like what was that sex trafficking report?
Basically,
The trafficking in persons report in Trinidad and Tobago. This is done by the state government.
State Department of US.
State Department of the US. Yeah, and under the so I had a quick read through, and under the recommendations, they basically recommended we start to do something.
Yeah, we've never had a conviction
Since
for
2011.
trafficking. Well, we obviously know that the police and the traffickers have a very good relationship. There's a lot of bribery going on. 1, 2, our justice, even if we started charging people, it will take 10 years to convict anybody, because the justice system is in such a mess. I have my handful of criminal cases. I have friends in DPP. I went to school with them, but they know they're overworked and understaffed, and every time the judge will set a date, okay, DPP to file and serve this by this date, they're always missing the date because they have too much work to do. So it's every level of the criminal justice system is just backlog.
But what is the reason for that backlog? Like, do they need to hire more people, or do they need to change the process to a more efficient process?
Well, it'll take about 50 people in a room to figure out all the answers, honestly. But I would say definitely the DPP's department is understaffed. I think they have, just vaguely from the top of my head, they have like 30 lawyers, and they're supposed to have like over 100 to deal with the workload that they have. So that instead of, in the past, under past administrations, instead of buying blimps or all these crazy mega projects you have, if you want to solve crime, you need to win cases.
Yeah. I'm getting worried with this shift that I see into spending a lot on these mega projects.
What shift has always been?
Well, yeah, that focus.
Always
definitely
been
not a shift, but I still getting worried that we seem to be in a bad place, and we still taking out a multi-billion-dollar debt to China. And the thing I don't understand about that is, okay, so we're taking a loan from China, so we're getting the money from China, and we're paying the money back to China, because they're going to come and build it as well, right? So after we take money from them and give them back, basically, then we're going to need to use taxpayers' dollars to pay them the interest on those loans as well, because you're going to pay them back with the interest on the loan. Actually, wait, no, I talking shit. We take it. No, it's even worse than I thought. We paying them. All right, so we take the money from them. We pay them back, right?
We hired their company, so the money is still going back to China.
Exactly.
It's
So
going
we
back to China
basically,
twice.
yeah, so we basically just have to pay China for the dry dock with interest, and all this money we spend, it just go into them to build it.
And
So
it's
it's
not
stimulating the economy.
employing local contractors.
Yeah, because using infrastructure like public funding of infrastructure construction is a way to help ease a
Unemployment.
recession. Yeah. Because they hire a lot of people from the area, you get the working money into the hands of the working class, and then they will spend it, in their areas and promote businesses and stuff. But this way, I don't know. So you're saying the DPP now is
Understaffed.
understaffed by about what, 50%?
By no,
Or more.
they need 2 to 3 times as many staff as they have now, so they understaffed by 200%.
Damn.
It takes 10 years to finish a murder case in this country or more. To give you an idea of how bad it is. There's also allegedly a lack of lawyers in the criminal bar as part. So there's one lawyer who has 200 or 100 murder cases who's always delaying everything.
So let's look at the route that a murder case will take. So why will it take 10 years? What exactly would happen? Let's say I murder somebody and I get held for it. And what's the whole process?
You really want... I didn't prepare to give you a lecture on criminal law, and I've never done a murder trial. I've never done a PI myself.
Yeah, well, we could look at any trial that you have experience in just to see why these things take so long to get handled.
I only do very petty criminal cases, but to give you an idea, charges are laid, you have a bail application, then you will have, if it's indictable, you have we're supposed to be doing it with preliminary inquiries, but traditionally you do a preliminary inquiry, which is it's a CH to see if the charges will stick, basically. I've never done one myself, but that's 5 years.
How long is
gone.
the preliminary?
See, it takes 5 years to finish that, and then you reach, you're still in the magistrate's court at that stage. Then you're now reaching high court after 5 years to start to prosecute. See, I only do very simple criminal cases. I've never done this. I'm probably butchering the explanation from a lawyer's point of view, but from the layman's point of view, it takes real damn long.
And that's just because of them being understaffed. So what exactly will the preliminary inquiry include? That would be investigations and stuff?
Investigations to make sure that you don't have a frivolous case, because a lot of cases get thrown out at that stage. Because police will charge innocent people sometimes.
Yeah. So let's say if everything was running perfectly, how long would it normally take for a preliminary inquiry to be completed?
I really don't know, but I would say that in other countries they can finish their criminal trials in 2-3 years.
Okay.
You need to bring Israel Khan to answer those questions. Yeah, as beyond my scope. But I would say for my what I've been advocating for, we need triple the funding for the DPP. We need our forensic sciences centers. Takes months to get back anything, or years.
Sometimes, do you always get back results for tests you inquire about, or are the cases eventually?
One day. So there seems to be a lack of political. Whenever politicians go on the platform to talk about solving crime, they give you this red herring. We're going to bring back hanging. Legally, it is still legal to hang somebody, but you know why we can't hang anybody?
Okay.
There's a case called Pratt and Morgan that says you have to hang somebody essentially within a 5-year time frame, which is why we can't hang anybody.
Right, because we don't have any cases that take less than 5 years.
Yeah, well, it's 5 years between the appeal and is a technical point, but it's a time limit. So, because we haven't met that time limit since Dolce days, we haven't hanged anybody.
So even if we were to bring back, even if there was a way to bring back hanging, would that do any good for the for curbing crime at all?
Well, of course, that's one of those hotly debated topics in human rights law and such. But the data shows that there generally is maybe a 1% drop whenever there's a major execution, but it's not a statistically significant effect on crime.
So why would people want hanging to come back at all?
Because ignorant politicians want to play to the emotions of the masses. And keep in mind, these are the same people who have the criminal justice system in the mess that it is now, that it isn't a mess, therefore you cannot get hanging, but they promising you hanging. It's a catch-22.
Yeah, and it's not even illegal. Well,
It is legal to do
yeah,
it
it's
if you
still
do it in
legal.
5 years. From 5 years from conviction to appeal or something. So all of those lawyers who might be judging me right now, just anybody else, just Google Pratt and Morgan and read the case.
Pratt and Morgan, what was that case about? That was the case where they, I guess, took longer than 5 years.
It's an appeal
convict?
from I think Jamaica's Court of Appeal to the Privy Council that the line of reasoning is that it is inhumane and a form of torture to allow somebody to
Be on death row for
be on
that
death
long.
row for more than 5 years, and it's bad for the psychology, all that wonderful human rights jargon.
Oh yeah, so it'll have to be like inhumane torture. Well, yeah, call that torture because why else would they care for somebody that they're going to hang anyway?
Well, yeah, they of course the Privy Council is a very liberal court, and even the CCJ is also in the discussions in law school, they come to the conclusion it's a non-hanging court. So, even though they're not going to tell the country to change the law, like a court cannot change your legislation for you per se, generally, unless it's horribly unconstitutional. But they will put those restrictions in place to bar hanging from being a willy-nilly,
All right, yeah,
procedure.
just basically make it as hard as possible.
A lot of bureaucracy. Judges love to give you bureaucracy.
So what would count as capital crimes?
Just murder and treason, as far as I know. Like, only the most serious offenses.
That will only include first-degree murder.
I don't think we have degrees of murder. There's oh gosh, again, I've never done a murder trial in my life.
Oh, right.
But I know from my international human rights courses, on international law, you can only get the death penalty for the most serious crimes. So it will include murder and sedition and the big ones,
Yeah, so what has your experience been like so far?
In terms
of what are your qualifications and what has been your law experience so far? Because you said now you have about 5 years experience as a practicing lawyer.
Yeah, I'm 5 years at the bar. I tutored human rights in UWI Law Faculty last semester. Should be tutoring something again this coming semester. I tend to go more to the civil litigation side, like land cases. Right now, I'm representing 27 adults and 13 children who are squatters in Grandy, and another squatter is suing them. The older squatter in time is supposed to have more rights, but I'm arguing also on the human rights ground that, well, there's the land law. My land law argument is that the piece of land they were on was never the piece of land he was on to begin with.
Right.
And my human rights argument is that there's under international law there's a right to housing. There's also a right, if you have a right to housing, you have other implicit things to protect that, which is a right against forced eviction.
So does that cover Trinidad?
Not
or do we have
yet.
anything like that in Trinidad?
Not yet, but I'm trying to be that guy who makes it happen.
Because I think our right to housing might be, geez, how would that
It's not a
affect us?
positive. It's not like a positive right. Like you have to build a house for somebody. It's like more like protect your if you have a house here and you have your right to your privacy being protected and right not to be forcefully evicted by the government. Like along those lines, it's not a positive that the government has to build everybody a house.
Is that something that squatters could use? Like, let's say somebody just goes on a piece of land and builds a house without any sort of permission. I think right now we have like a certain time period, and if they're there for a certain time period, then they could get
A deed, yeah.
a deed of comfort or something.
Well, you can get a deed of comfort after 5 years, I think. And there's also even apart from human rights law in land law, there's something called adverse possession. So if somebody squats on a private person's land for 16 years, he can take it from you once you meet the requirements, as in you knew about the man squatting and you did nothing about it for 16 years, you lose your land. Against the state, it's 30 years. What I wanted to talk about other than that, we could talk about the political system in general.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that what I like, even though Nikolai Edwards is probably going to lose a couple elections for a couple of years, what is important about his party, only Nikolai and the MSJ actually have an ideological position in this country.
Yeah, that is something that he even said it on the podcast. He's saying I think center left politics, and he was talking about the fact that we don't really have any fixed Yeah,
ideologies.
ideologies. It's just more of a kind of help out your friends and family
Yeah,
sort of thing.
it's race slash populism slash tribe.
Yeah, I think it's more of like a tribalistic political system that we have. But I think there might be a shift coming now because, well, I guess our generation and younger
Mm.
just have more access to the internet and just more, I don't know, aware and open minded.
Mm.
Because I find the older people I meet, a lot of the time they are like a lot more set in their ways already. If you vote in PNM for 40 to 50 years, it's like nobody gonna make you vote against, you know. I know the other way. But among people like 30 and younger, I see they just fed up of both PNM and UNC, and it's like, listen, against UNC. It's like, yeah, but I'm not for PNM either. I
Even
just want something
internally
different.
in UNC and PNM, I'm a member of the UNC. Not that I'm like a outside UNC diehard, but internally, the UNC, I, Fuad Khan is my uncle. I'm not gonna say who was at these Christmas or these birthday parties. You listen to these ministers and MPs talk. They're fed up of these politics as well, you know. But it is just how it is. Is that for the UNC to function, you have to have a charismatic leader, and everything is about Kamla. It used to be it was like it's a cult of personality around Kamla before it was around Pandey, and there's no ideology, and there's no room for internal debate, or when instead of say good ideas being put forward, there's just a lot of nepotism and sucking up.
Yeah.
And proper leadership, if you study any book on good leadership, like Abraham Lincoln would have people in his cabinet, in his war cabinet, who disagree with him, who is enemy, but because they're competent, you need them. We don't have that in Trinidad. If you're incompetent and loyal to the leader in Trinidad, you will be promoted. That is why we have right now our Minister of Foreign Affairs cannot speak coherently, and he's supposed to speak coherently to other countries.
What are Marlene McDonald's qualifications?
I have no idea, but it is my opinion that regardless of whether or not charges are laid, she should resign. She's an embarrassment to the BNM.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm sure you could find somebody higher, like more highly qualified with less baggage, willing to do that job. Like because right now, I think we are highly educated right now
Yes.
with tertiary education becoming free to a point where almost everybody I know is overqualified for their job. So any job that somebody wants to get a worker for, they could get somebody overqualified for that job. I sure including a ministerial position. So I don't know why we still have underqualified ministers when everybody else needs to be overqualified.
Well, it's traditionally you to get anywhere in politics, you have to be in the party for a couple of years and be loyal to the political leader. That is the first requirement. And you can be highly incompetent in your position, unless they find somebody better. Well, again, look at Stuart Young. Stuart Young is minister of everything because he has a little bit of competence, but moreover, he was completely loyal to Peter Orley. That's why he became minister of everything. Why? And why do you have a lawyer as head of national security? He has no security qualifications.
Wasn't Jack Warner head of national security once?
Well, that was a debacle in and of itself.
I mean, how the hell was he minister of national security? That was, I don't know. Like some things I see, I just wonder what the hell really going on.
We don't live in a sane society.
Yeah, we don't. But why is this being perpetuated if you have a lot of ministers internally that I guess don't support it? Because I can't believe that all the ministers are let me just say idiotic, right? I mean, I have to believe you must have some PNM ministers that are actually intelligent and make sense just by sheer chance. Just call it statistics. If you take this amount of random people and throw them in a room, chances are at least some of them must be competent and smart.
At something.
Yeah, competent and honest with both UNC and PNM. And I just don't know why you don't really hear much from them at all. Like, they just seem to be silenced. And I think that happening in a bigger way in our country as well, where like the smart and intelligent and competent people just kind of silenced because, I don't know, it's too much noise otherwise.
Have you seen this series, Chernobyl?
No, not yet.
Well,
need
I
to
only
watch
watched the first episode. Like, I couldn't handle the people bleeding from all these orifices, they're dying from radiation. But the first episode, it gives you a good glimpse into how our failing political system messes up management. So like for the first episode, everybody's telling the manager of the nuclear power plant that okay, the reactor has exploded. We need to evacuate. They say no, this is impossible. This reactor is not physically possible. It's not possible engineering. And he took an extra they waited like until the morning until they could clearly see okay, the reactor exploded. And because of that delay and that incompetence and that basically the truth was stifled to the cost of people's lives.
Right, it's stifled to a point where you create a crisis.
By stifling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's happening because within all these political parties, they don't. If you have an unpopular opinion that is true and that is highly intelligent, you will be shut down. Also, I read Hugh Wooding's autobiography a while back. It was something. It is something that's been in our politics for a long time. Is a sort of we have these political leaders with these super egos that are actually very what's the word? What's the word for low self-esteem, lacking in self-confidence, insecure. Yes.
Insecure. Right.
So like Eric Williams is apparently afraid of. He was afraid of Carl Hudson Phillips and afraid of Hugh Wooding because those were also major island scholars who were super brilliant, who could match his intelligence or surpass it. So when Hugh Wooding was pushing constitutional reform since like the 70s, and Williams replied, that proposal is a dagger at the heart of the PNM. Well, one, our constitution does give the PNM a two-party system advantage.
Right.
Two, it like whenever a good idea is proposed, generally, it will be shut down because of that insecurity.
That could be what the main problem. Like they just probably have a lot of insecurity there. I mean, yeah. Why else would you get rid of people that disagree with you?
Oh yeah, I have a friend. Well, he's a Facebook friend. Dr. Sanjay Baji Maharaj. So this guy has his PhD in international security, masters in international maritime law. This guy is so freaking brilliant. He wrote a book on Indian nuclear. Like he spent some years in some Indian military research institute. He wrote a book on Indian nuclear weapons policy. So if India went to war with China, he wrote a book on what measures to take to win the war. He's that brilliant.
He's from Trinidad?
He's Trinidadian. And he used to advise national security under UNC. But you would think somebody who's that bright should be... I'm not sure if he has the acumen to be... Because being a minister has a lot of management and other skills. But he should be at a higher rank than
at least a lead consultant, you know? Somebody that is maybe not in charge of things, but definitely... somewhere close by to advise, like a very, very close advisor, like a senior advisor.
In any logical society, the most brilliant people should be. Oh, and he wrote like a dozen articles on like our Coast Guard situation. Apparently, the Trinidad Coast Guard has we have the largest Coast Guard in the Caribbean, in English-speaking Caribbean, apparently.
We do. Because we actually do a lot of work for like Barbados and Grenada and those other islands. We have to sail up there and kind of help them out sometimes.
We have the most Coast Guard vessels in history. But the problem is, so he actually said, we have enough vessels to secure all our borders if, they were fueled and they were maintained and there was a proper patrol system in place. So it is not really that we need more boats. We need the management of the Coast Guard to do their job. And when
you also have, sure, you also have like some corruption in the Coast Guard as well.
Of course, and the national security just being laid back and not holding people to task for nonsense. So when he says,
I wouldn't be surprised if sometimes a boat coming in from Venezuela, like if the guy is well connected enough, they might get a tip off, to know how to avoid the patrol and stuff.
To let the drugs in.
Yeah.
So when people like him tell you the truth and tell you how to fix, if we secure our borders in 6 months, I'm sure crime will start to drop dramatically. Because no bullets, no guns,
Yeah, well, the thing is, we already have a lot of bullets and guns in the country.
They run out eventually,
Yeah, I worry about how much we have.
We have a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a huge step forward. But the people who are telling you the answers are there, Kastani. But the people who give them are ignored.
Like, even legalization of drugs. Because I think the U.S. realized that making marijuana illegal had actually fueled the Mexican cartel for years.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what fueling the criminals. And look at California after they legalized it, and they ran out of things to spend money on from the taxes. They literally ran out of things to spend the money on. Again, that's like one more solution that could create some employment. But why? I don't know why nobody really looking at it.
No, we I think we already said
seriously
we are
as
going to decriminalize, but
Okay.
it's.
I know this guy, Marcus Ramkissoon, is doing some work on it as well. I think he has a political party called THC. Yeah, actually the acronym was was on purpose.
Of course. I would say that, of course, you can't just copy and paste policy from the United States and expect it to work here. But from my friends who are doctors who work in the healthcare system, they would say the one concern they have is that we have a population that seems to have a higher than normal rate of mental illness. And while marijuana to the average person does nothing, to somebody with an underlying condition can send them completely mad.
No, that's a good point.
So we need
But
to.
what is being done with mental illness in Trinidad? Because I don't hear anything about that.
Let
at
me
all.
just finish the previous point. So my personal position on marijuana is that yes, it should be decriminalized because we're clogging up the system with young black boys. Sorry for anybody's So just to for viewers, I am every race and I am part black as well. And when I go to the United States, I am black. Before anybody gets all emotional about me using the word black and saying I'm some kind of UNC racist, I am not. So the justice system gets clogged up with 18, 19-year-old, mainly black boys, occasional other ethnic group. We know how the police moves in this country.
Yeah.
There's an underlying racism to everything. And they might be very small time selling their little 10 gram of weed. And when you put them through jail and they come back out after they get beat and raped in jail, they're going to be hardened criminals. So we need to stop that.
Yeah, definitely. And then if you decriminalize it to a point where you're not going to have them coming in and clogging up the prison system and you're not going to be affecting them and turning them into hardened criminals like that, maybe then you could actually try to go after the people that actually bringing it in. You know, the people that actually the source of where they get in it, because these small-time criminals arresting them not doing any good at all.
Yeah, it's not doing any good.
Because you arrest a man from this block, it just mean, all right, it'll have an opportunity for somebody else to come and sell on that block now. You're not stopping anything. You know, and then what, you're going to arrest him too? And so you'll just keep on clogging up the system and you're not solving anything.
And those are not serious crimes, don't hurt anybody. Well,
yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, we know the characters there. Sometimes we know the areas they come from might not be the best areas, but a lot of the time the reason for people to turn out a certain way is the environment. I look at it as like a social failure on our part. You know, if a 15, 16-year-old, like, what would have to happen for you to be selling weed on a block at 15 or 16 years old?
you're hungry?
I sure that was furthest thing from your mind, because you probably grew up in
I grew
a
up
decent
privileged.
house. Yeah, I grew up privileged as well. I mean, I wasn't rich, but I wasn't so poor that I had to go on the side of the road at 15 years old and sell weed to
Make
to
ends
make
meet.
to make ends meet.
So
So I think that's what they need to look at.
I would say legalize medical marijuana, decriminalize like small amounts. Only if somebody's like trafficking a huge amount, okay, maybe arrest them and just focus on act like murder, rape, and these serious crimes.
Yeah, I would go a step further and say you could legalize it, but have it strictly regulated to a point where, like, you'll have to have a license to sell it. So you can have a shop, whatever. Your shop will have to meet certain strict health and safety criteria. Whatever you're selling, the like THC and CBD contents will need to be known so that the customer knows exactly what they're getting. You know, you don't want somebody buying something and they buy the same thing and next time, and this time it's real strong. And I don't really hear
They fall
about
on the floor.
overdosing, but then you have to look at, you don't want anybody driving under influence or operating any kind of heavy machinery. So you still have all the restrictions with alcohol, have all the restrictions with this, and then some more.
And then tax those marijuana cafes heavily and make your money.
Exactly. Tax it very heavily.
Yeah, and even as a Christian, like I always point out to pastors, and some argue with me, but even priests, I would tell them, God, nowhere in the Bible has a naturally occurring substance ever been banned. It doesn't ever happen. The whole marijuana illegality issue is the United States. Somewhere at the turn of the century decided,
It was 1930s.
Yeah, decided, all these black and Mexican people have this substance, and if we could control them by banning it, it's just purely racial.
Yeah, and it was also right after, I think it was right after Prohibition ended
Yeah, yeah.
as well. So I guess they had, who would have been running it? The State Department or, I don't know,
One of those DA,
the
drug
DEA or
enforcement.
something. Probably just
One of
had nothing else to do. And he
Well,
decided,
everybody has agendas, eh?
Yeah.
So, and then the rest of the world decided to follow U.S. policy, which wasn't the best idea. Now we end up here.
Well, they sort of, I'm sure they were pressured into
Yeah, they were
following
pressured into it.
their policy.
So
But
we
yeah,
have,
I say do it like that, heavily tax it, and then have it in such a way that the licenses can only be given out to local citizens with single citizenship, because you don't want people, getting sponsorship from a company away, and then some
Clogging
company
up the
with
market, yeah.
links to California sets up here and just price all our locals out of the market. You need to do things to keep the money in our country and benefit our people a little bit. So yeah, I think we could take a look at that one.
And I would still say, as a Christian, like, it is a sin to smoke marijuana, but that does not mean that the law should reflect that. Like, it's a sin to commit adultery, doesn't mean we should put adulterers in jail. We have to put
A separation of church and
just
state.
some separation of church and state, else we'll just be a messed up theocracy.
But I mean, Moses talked to burning bush, right? So chances are could have been a weed plant or something.
Yeah, I'm not gonna comment on it. But yes, where were we? Political system.
Right, we were talking about why it is that you don't get intelligent people making it.
Oh
in
yeah,
politics.
so back to my friend Sanjay. So he has been constantly shut down with his proposals by the Coast Guard and the Defense Force, and even though, well, he's pointing out the fact that they're not doing their job and there's systemic corruption and systemic incompetence. That is why we cannot secure our borders. We have radar systems, we have a lot of boats. We could be if we were diligent.
Yeah. All right, so Nikolai Edwards, when I talked to him, he was saying that his original plan was to try to get into one of the political parties, like most likely PNM, because let's face it, his skin color, and that's how it will work.
He's a Douglas,
Serious?
Yeah, but just because he looks a certain
Yeah.
there's so much
Yeah,
racism
exactly.
in this
So
country.
much racism.
I look more Indian or Syrian, so people assume something, but
Yeah, people assume I'm Venezuelan or something, and I actually have no Venezuelan in me.
I have a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of the few things I don't have in me. Yeah, so he was saying his plan was to actually sort of get into one of the political parties and try to get a lot of youths and our generation to get into the party and change the party from the inside. But then he realized that it's just so much that he'll have to change in those parties. He would never, it'll be way too difficult to do. And chances are with the amount of fight
be
back
a
he'll get.
old man.
Yeah,
by the
and
time
with
he
the amount of
finish.
fighting back that he will get, he might never be able to make a difference. And that's what pushed him to start his own thing. Even though he knows he might not win. Like, I told him flat out, I don't think he'll win this election. But
He knows that.
regardless of that, you need to stay in after you lose. Because it might be next election, might be the election afterwards. You mightn't win until you're 55. But guess what? If you still have the same ideals, because I thought his ideas made sense. So I was like, if you still have those ideals and you get that far, then it'll still be a massive success.
Yeah, I still think, even though I would, if I were in the United States, I might end up being more conservative. We need him as a liberal, because we need the politics to become sensible and ideological, not about race, because the politics silently fuels racism in this country, and we take it for granted that we haven't ended up like Jamaica or Lebanon or somewhere else where the political strife has ended up in conflict and bloodshed. But we can't assume that we will always be that way, especially with the amount of guns in the streets.
True. I think right now there are just a lot of things happening, and because we have not had a real crisis in a long time, I think the last crisis was the 1990 coup. We just, we are saying the politicians mostly, just sort of doing more and more to see, because they get away with it. They raise gas price, they get away with it. They giving Chinese contracts to get away with it. They sell Petrotrin or whatever.
Well, yeah,
They
that's
get away
the
with
thing.
it. They're taking $1 billion loans and our economy in
China.
a bad state, and nothing happened in the country still running. People still going to work, and we're still having the same two
Well,
murders a day. So
the
it's
thing
just
is, I would say
no
the
reason to
the
change.
political psyche of our country is very weak. As in, if we were France, half
Yeah,
the nonsense that went on in government, like between Sandals and the Dragon Gas deal, and like the same thing I told you at the beginning of the podcast with our foreign policy. If we continue down that road, we will end up like Cuba and have no food from coming from America in the ports. If we don't stop playing with Maduro. But we just ignore it. If we were France, we would have burned down a port of Spain like how they burned down Paris.
yeah, with
And
the
we'll
yellow
get a
vest.
change. Yes.
Yeah, because what they did, they just raised the tax on fuel.
It was a lot of austerity measures, but you have to, the people's voice has to be heard. Even after the election,
Yeah.
the existing representatives have to know that they cannot do nonsense. We don't do that.
We don't do that at all. Like, I don't see a lot of things that actually benefit people in the long term. Like, again, that Sandals resort. So, well, I guess you don't follow some of what Rafa Riemann did
Yes.
on
Big fan of Afro,
on that. Yeah, me too. Me too. So, because I had a lot of friends that were saying that they don't understand why we stopped the Sandals resort. That was gonna bring in
They
so
do
much.
or they don't.
They don't understand.
We didn't stop it, they left.
Oh, they left. I thought we stopped it.
No, well, Afro was protesting. There's protest plan, but Sandals basically said they don't like the political bacchanal. But Afro was pointing out that we're going to give them some insane tax holiday. One, two, we're going to spend a couple $1 billion building it. Three, we're going to just damage the environment in the area with No Man's Land, which is you've been there?
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
So it will cost us billions of dollars, and we all know how much money is stolen from mega projects.
Yeah. For sure.
So it was like there was no mathematical projection showing us, okay, after 20 years, then the government will get back tax revenue.
No, but it was even worse than that. They weren't required to incorporate Sandals in Trinidad and Tobago. So they could incorporate it in a different country. Like, they could incorporate it in a tax haven. So they would not have to pay taxes, right? They had certain stipulations where they have to hire a certain amount of local staff. But I think there was like a caveat that stated that if they could only get like certain professionals outside of the country, they don't really have to live up to that stipulation. So it's like, this is how much local staff we want, but it's more of a suggestion than an actual requirement. Same thing with any purchasing for like food or otherwise. We tell them they need to buy a certain amount from our local farmers and stuff, but we understand that they have a business and need to stay consistent with their brand, and they will have like
You'll be importing and using foreign exchange.
So we gave them permission to basically, well, we were just gonna build it for them.
We gave them
give
free
it to
land, free building, damage our environment.
And they don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to hire local labor. They don't have to buy anything from Trinidad or Tobago.
It was a bad deal.
Yeah.
I'm glad it left. And we have this kind of dependency mentality on foreign brands. I mean, we have local talent. We just don't support local talent.
That's what I've been trying to tell people. It's like, we are so qualified. We are so skilled, right? Even just our generation come down, everybody overqualified for their job right now. And we can't even figure out a way to feed ourselves with agriculture. And labor in Trinidad is cheaper as well.
I would say, if in a hypothetical future, if I was Minister of Finance or in the government, one, I'd first protest against all unnecessary mega projects until we have water in everybody's taps.
Yeah.
And like basic infrastructure. Two, what I would do, because you see all these malls going up, all these big, we're not gonna call the groups behind them, but you know who they are.
Oh yeah,
them.
yeah.
So I don't like to be racist, but there's a particular group of millionaires and billionaires in this country building malls. But why isn't that money invested in like agriculture and factories or technology?
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. I mean, I think a lot more could be done, and I'm just surprised that nothing being done, and I'm not hearing any noise about it.
Well, people who talk sense are ignored, and even by the masses. You remember, like Kia just went on rant, and because of her cussing and ranting, she got millions or hundreds of thousands of followers. And Philip Alexander and the others are the same way. We don't have appetite for sense. One, two, the politicians they're just there to take their cut, really.
Yeah, and just sort of hold on. I think they just purposefully have us oscillating between one and the other. So at
Yeah.
least like they know they'll not stay in power perpetually, but they don't mind staying in power half the time because at least they're in power half the
Yeah,
time.
some of these people, if we hear the kind of contracts, they set for 20 years when they're done in government.
Yeah, I mean if some of the contractors from where it was? It was Sealots or that area, somewhere around there. Like they were getting a lot of contracts as well, right? $Multi-million contracts. I think Cedric Burke got
Turkey,
yeah, I think he got some contracts as well for construction. I think Molly McDonald, it was a common-in-law husband or something
He got a couple some
for
checks
community
from Caliber.
centers, to build community centers and stuff. And I think, you have any idea how much civil engineers I know that much more highly qualified and they have no chance at getting any kind of contract like that?
Yeah, it's the corruption one, and
Nepotism.
back to my previous point. So hypothetically, if I was Minister of Finance,
Yeah.
I would sit down with all the banks and all these major corporations and say, Israel is a good example of like Israel is like a major leader in technology. Like their military technology is better than the US in some areas. Like their drones and their drones and their missile defense and certain things that they are. In the 80s, they built a bunch of it was like a public-private partnership with a lot of hedge funds.
Right.
So they funded the companies they needed to build these industries and technology in the 80s, and now they're reaping the benefit. So I think we just sit down, whatever. I would say I'll put all the billionaires in a room and put all the banks in a room and say, okay, we're gonna open a hedge fund. And a hedge fund, like as you would know, it makes money. Once you invest in good companies, it makes returns.
All right.
So venture capitals, we'll take like $2 billion TT dollars, and we're gonna find the top 5 or 10 best companies with good ideas in Trinidad to invest in. That will bring in foreign exchange, and we fund these companies, and then we make jobs. We fix agriculture. We have food in the country. We'll be exporting pepper sauce or something, cocoa, something.
Yeah, we have cocoa, we have coconuts, coconut water, citrus. Citrus is a big one. And then at least be able to feed ourselves. Because if you say we have any problems with dealing with Venezuela, where we get cut off from the US from
Well, likely what will happen at the last
happen.
minute, Rowley will go call the ambassadors like, RL, sorry, boy.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it.
I think
And
they probably look
will-
at us as like a sort of
We are a bunch of clowns to them.
yeah, so that's why they don't take us as seriously. Like if
Well, Cuba provides military assistance to Venezuela. That's why they're in that state. But we just a bunch of clowns. So we're not going to get starved to death, but it is our policy, just to make the point, is stupid.
yeah, and the thing is, we not any closer to the states geographically than Venezuela. So Cuba, at least they had remember that was the point of the Cold War to set up.
Missile crisis.
Yeah, the missile crisis. To set up the missiles there where they within striking distance, but Trinidad we literally next to Venezuela, so it's not
Well,
gonna make a
we
big
did
difference.
we do have the highest recruitment rate per capita for terrorists in the world.
ISIS.
Yeah, so we are a concern of theirs. A small concern, but a concern.
Yeah, I know they've been trying a very long while to wean themselves off of our natural gas supply.
Oh no, US is a
Do they even
exporter now of natural gas.
Oh shit, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because at a point in time about 20 years ago, we used to
And the
supply
mining days.
we used to supply 75% of their imports to the
One of those
Eastern
states,
Seaboard.
yeah, that's before fracking.
Yeah.
And people are warning us like we need to diversify. We didn't diversify.
You know how long I hear about diversification? Since primary school, I hear about diversification, and every year we still have to focus only on oil and gas.
Yeah, they say there's 2 political myths in Trinidad. One is constitutional reform, and the other is diversification.
I think they should just all step down.
There's no political will to do it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That we put the UNCOPNM in place, and then it's just a setup back. Like imagine the amount of energy spent dealing with bacchanal that is not spent dealing with governing. That alone
The
damages.
amount of money being spent as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because who paying for Marlin lawyer?
True, eh?
That's senior counsel. That is like 2,000 TT, 4,000 TT an hour.
4,000 TTR an hour.
Senior counsel fees.
Wow.
So who paying for a lawyer? I want to know who. I mean, the minister's salary is only so much. Something is always some backroom deal. Is always some.
Yeah.
Friend.
Look at even it was Maxi Coffee. When he had his stroke, didn't they fly him out to the States? And I think they spent like $1 million
And
to
he was
have him up on
getting
a...
he was getting a minister's salary while he was in the hospital.
Yeah, so I thought we had free healthcare in Trinidad. What was the point of that?
For us plebeians, us,
Yeah.
lower class citizens. Who,
I really
yeah.
think one of the requirements of a minister should be that they need to use all public services.
Mm.
So if you have anything wrong with you, use the public healthcare. So you can see how it is. Because I think they're just too isolated from our problems.
Yeah, because when you live within your gated community and you only leave your gated community in your Porsche to go to Parliament and to Lime, you don't know Trinidad anymore.
And even if you're coming down somewhere else, you're gonna have a police escort and you're driving on the priority bus route. So they even know what traffic is like.
Yeah, we keep voting in the elites and people who want to be elites, because once they reach there, they become elites.
True.
We do have people like I have a friend Kareem Master. Like, one of the reasons why I support him long term, he has experienced the suffering of the people. He's a people's person, and I hope he maintains his grassroots connections, his care.
So what do you think about none of the above option on the ballot? You ever considered it?
Well, when I get pissed off, I vote MSJ.
MSJ is
It's the same. It's the Blue Party, the Communist Party, the Socialists.
MSJ.
Abdullah,
Oh, all right.
the slightly. I'm sorry, Angelo, who's the MSJ's leader, but you all have never won anything on your own. So if I'm pissed off at everybody, I just vote MSJ.
Well, I guess that's one way to do it.
What is your viewership like?
I'm still starting up. I need to spend more money in advertising on Facebook, because anytime I advertise on Facebook, I'll get a spike of like a couple hundred views.
Mm-hmm.
But without it, wouldn't be that much.
It's advertising and you're talking sense.
Yeah.
So I always think when I talk in sense, my viewership is fine wine and not Coca-Cola.
Is fine or not?
And not Coca-Cola, as in, instead of the normal Kia, Philip Alexander nonsense,
Yeah.
only people who want to hear sense will listen, which is not much.
Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, I don't know. I think people just don't expect there to be any sense anymore. So they just kind of gave up looking. So they're like a learned helplessness.
That too, eh? They don't know who to trust as well.
Yeah, I think that really is it. I think it is a learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You ever heard of that experiment about learned helplessness?
No.
So you know of I think it's Pavlov's dog.
Oh, this is the monkeys who
I
were
think
the
it was
ladder.
No, I think this is a dog that they use, but it was similar to Pavlov's dog experiment.
Yeah.
You familiar with that experiment though?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So that's the one where he rang the bell every time it was time for food, right? So this is like the opposite. What he would do, I think he'd have the dog in a cage with some food, and every time the dog went to eat the food, he'll shock the dog, right? And yeah. So and then he'll just start. So the dog will stop going for the food, and then he'll start to just randomly shock the dog, right? So the dog wouldn't want to do anything, and then they'll put the dog, I think it was in a cage with some food without shocking the dog at all, and the dog just wouldn't move. And the dog will just kind of starve itself because it just learned to be helpless. So it just not bothered to try.
I think that's called PTSD.
Yeah.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah. So I think that might be the situation we in as a
Oh
population.
yes. I always say that our paradigm for the relationship between politics and people is that we are basically, the citizens are like a battered wife. We know we're in a bad relationship,
Yeah.
but we're too scared to leave. And we have this kind of battered wife syndrome where we love what we have,
Yeah.
even though we know it's bad. And we make all I have a lot of experience. I was on the board of the Organization for Abused and Battered Individuals. I did a lot of cases for battered women. Well, it's once they realize that they always have a very small window to get a battered woman out of a relationship. If we don't get them in that window, when they realize, okay, today you might kill me, I need to get out. It's called the cycle of abuse. After they get abused, you have that little window to tell them, okay, get out, pack up and leave. If you don't get them, then they fall back into the relationship. It's like, I'm living with him, you have a child, he paying the bills, and they just get stuck.
So that's the part of the cycle we're in. And I guess we just never had that window of opportunity to get out of it as yet.
Well, the only window we had was between the coup and Because every election we vote out one bad party and vote in somebody else who steals more money. So
Yeah, we don't vote for anybody. We vote against
against.
by just voting for the next more popular one. But do you think the coup would have made a good difference?
No,
Because that's the thing.
that's bad. That
Yeah.
was bad.
Because I don't want.
We don't
I would
want
have,
to
yeah, I'd
live.
have hated to have to live under Sharia law.
Well, I'm not sure if they wanted Sharia. They just wanted change, from what I gather.
Well, if it's just change, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know that much in-depth information about the coup
Yeah, they
to
never.
comment
Well,
on it.
I went to a conference with Alakshwa Dukuran on the coup just a couple of weeks ago. He was there in Parliament where the demands and like they did not have a proper plan of how they would govern. They just said we want to change the government. It's like, okay, how are you going to do that? What laws are you going to
Yeah.
pass? You have to have the president to sign things in this on our constitution. The president. So he helped that. He basically helped them through this the process until they got him out of the parliament and into. He was the interim prime minister. He left parliament and he went to execute some of their demands and well, that's the gist of how some of the coup went.
Oh,
So
wow.
they didn't seem to have a plan to implement. Well, if it was a plan, they didn't. The gunmen in the parliament did not know. Okay, we want Sharia law. Here's the book. Make this the law of the land by tomorrow morning. It wasn't like that.
Hmm.
Apparently, it was very, sporadic.
Did they ever say what type of change they wanted?
No, I don't think so. Well, not there wasn't like a specific ideology. It was just like they're fed up with the situation with the NAR and the poverty and that is after the major recession, during the major recession. But let's not go into that because I am, but it's a huge piece of history. I'm probably botching again. Not authority
Yeah,
on
and the
it.
thing is, I don't want to ever condone something like that.
Well, yeah,
but at the same
it's
time,
wrong.
I
It's
mean,
morally wrong, but it is the people expressing, well, a small group of the people expressing their frustration at the corruption, mismanagement, and nonsense of the government.
yeah, the thing is, like, we have a lot of that going on right now, and we have a lot of people with the same sentiment. Now, I know a lot of them do not follow the Islamic ideology and do not want to. So, I mean, I would not like a coup to
Well, I'm
be
not
the way
advocating for a
to
coup, but I do believe I'm a very big fan of Martin Luther King Jr. Civil
peaceful
disobedience,
protests.
peaceful protests, hunger strikes, and like shut off some streets,
Yeah.
and you do that continually until you see the change you want. We don't do that here.
Yeah, and then the way we do it sometimes, well, first of all, you have protests, but most of the times the protests are for like police shootings, and most of the time the person being shot was somebody that was shooting back at the police.
We have a lot of protests, but we
And then
lack
we affect the wrong people as well in the protests because they protest
Yeah.
non-stopping work
Traffic.
commuters who didn't have no involvement in the issue at all.
Yeah, effective protests would be like to seriously harass members of cabinet, like not in a dangerous way, but like when you glitter bomb people in other countries, like you throw glitter on them, like
Yeah.
that might be an assault still, but it's not substantially criminal, not a serious threat to you. It's not an assault, it's glitter. Nobody's afraid of glitter. It's not an assault.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be allergic to glitter. It'll just be highly annoying.
It's highly you annoy them.
I guess just aim to make life extremely inconvenient
For
for
the
them.
power players who can't make the change.
Yeah.
Also, we lack. Well, Kublal Singh, remember we have a culture where we make fun of people trying to make a change. So we mocked Kublal Singh for his stance.
Yeah, I think some people were saying that he wanted the what did he want exactly? For
He
the
wanted
highway
to
to be
reroute.
shifted? Right, rerouted. But what was better about the reroute?
They was going to destroy a bunch of mangrove and important habitat.
And by rerouting,
They saved some mangrove and important habitat.
but what about so what environments were they destroying, or were they not destroying anything with the reroute?
I can't remember. I don't recall the exact details, but remember mangrove is important for the fisheries. And You have sensitive otters and all those other sensitive species that only live in mangrove versus regular bush is just Gucci and snake.
Oh, yeah, because I was hearing some rumors, this unconfirmed, so I have no idea if it's true or not, that he wanted it rerouted to where he had some land that he owned, so that he would
I
get
thought
some
he
cutback
has
from
a
it.
PhD from Oxford. I'm sure he had a better scheme than that to make money.
Okay,
There are
fair
better
enough.
schemes than that to
Fair
make
enough.
money.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That might have just been some propaganda then to
That's
get
propaganda,
people,
that's
to get people to
nonsense.
make fun of him, Because I guess that's if you cannot disprove somebody, it might be easier just to discredit them.
Yeah, that's what we do. We discredit and we mock.
Yeah, well, that's the easiest way to discredit somebody. Just find something to make fun of and mock them for it. Because I think Kublai Singh. I used to see more memes than news articles about Kublai Singh. Let's put it that way.
But everything in the society, we mock everything. Everything, there's no seriousness. That's one of the problems. Instead of like again with this Venezuela foreign policy situation, we don't see how serious the Dragon gas deal could be if it goes wrong. We just make jokes about PNM, UNC, Raleigh Ballhead. It's irreverent, and we need to. This is our future and our lives at stake.
Like even something as simple as human trafficking. We'll make fun of all the brothels that we have around Trinidad.
Yes.
And it's why are these brothels still operating if prostitution is illegal? I mean, you could ask anybody where they could go to get a prostitute, like anybody on the road, and they could give you directions.
Yes.
But these places still operating. Like, what the police doing? Why are they still in operation?
A large amount of the police, well, I may not say a large amount, elements of the police service are in cahoots with the gang leaders.
Well, yeah, that was shown in I have the article somewhere. In one of the newspaper articles where one of the victims of human trafficking said that she was being held by a police officer. That's why she couldn't go to the police.
Well, yeah, it's also, from what I heard, once you're in the police service, like there's a decision you have to make. They have the good police and the bad police. And the good police tend to ignore what the bad police do because of the repercussions. You choose what side you're on.
Yeah, and the thing is, it will be an incredibly dangerous situation to try to sell out a fellow police officer. Like, I could imagine that. I could empathize with the good police officers that
it's hard.
Not doing as much as they could out of fear, because they're gonna have
trying
families
to think
as
about
well.
at the end of the day, Yeah.
I had a neighbor, and my neighbor's father was a police officer some years back from Venezuela, and he was saying he had to leave the police force because he was never corrupt or anything, right? And I think they had some problems with the police force back then. And he was saying one of the police officers at the time had tell him, hey, if you don't want to see bullets coming from in front and behind you, next shootout, you'll just start to keep quiet and stop making trouble. And he said he quit the police after that.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, I mean, you have any kind of shootout, and there's nothing for a stray bullet to hit you. So I feel it for the good officers that having problems, with doing what they really want to do.
What I would advocate for is that what does work in this country, if somebody, like you saw the Guardian article with the supposed businessman, they didn't show any names or faces, but they gave the outline. And then this idiot somewhere decided to send a legal letter saying, my reputation is damaged. Like, we wasn't talking about you, or are we?
Yeah.
That's the height of, like, we'll see. I have no comment on it because I don't have a bulletproof vest, but we know certain very powerful elements in this country are involved in trafficking. But what I would say, a possible solution, if somebody has the information, the internet is a good place for anonymous. Remember WikiLeaks?
Right.
You put the photos and names and bank accounts of all these human traffickers or whatever data you have, you dump them online.
Yeah.
And the media and the police cannot ignore it anymore.
If you want to dump it online and you're afraid about being tracked, you could use a VPN or something.
Yeah,
I guess that's for whoever out there, I don't know, have some sensitive information
be brave.
you want to dump.
You don't even have to be brave. You could do it from the privacy of your home and never be caught.
Just use a VPN.
Yeah.
As a virtual private network. I don't know, just Google it and see. Well, whoever wants to check it out could just Google it and see what VPNs they could use.
You'll be untrackable. You open an email account, you send emails to all the media houses, you post it on a Facebook page.
Yeah.
It'll never come back to you.
Like, so they had some leaks that Mark Vassant had gotten recently.
He always has leaked documents about something.
The stuff that gets leaked to him are things that should be public knowledge anyway, like the amount of money being spent on public projects. I think we should have access to all of the projects that our taxpayers' dollars are being funded on.
Of course.
Just get a list. You list the company, you list the amount the project was awarded for.
It's public money. We should know where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So you wouldn't have a case like this where Molly McDonald could give 2 checks to her common law husband. And we hearing about that on and off for the past like 5 years. You know, she got fired. This was the second time she might get fired off of it. I don't know.
She should resign and just, stop bothering the PNM. She's a burden to them.
Yeah.
A heavy burden.
Yeah.
So we can look at the prioritized recommendations in the Trafficking in Persons Report for 2019. This is done by the U.S. State Department. It says here, Trinidad needs to increase efforts to investigate, prosecute, and convict traffickers, including complicit officials, increase proactive victim identification and screening among migrants and asylum seekers, ensure trafficking victims are adequately screened, provide adequate funding for robust trafficking investigations, as in actually go after the human traffickers properly. That provide specialized care to child trafficking victims, increase training on trafficking for NGOs and shelter staff, consider increasing NGO representation to the anti-trafficking force. So that on that point, I have a lot of experience working with not necessarily rape crisis, but I end up in rooms with rape crisis. For the sex offenders registry bill, I was there was a meeting with all the major NGOs on what input we wanted into the policy. I was also in the Senate committee, special committee hearing on it as well. So these NGOs deal with the grassroots problems, and the grassroots problems in this country, like the kind of horror stories you hear. Like I've heard recently a story. There's this. Say there was this child who was he's in a children's home in Central. Somebody takes him from the children's home, takes him to Hyatt, rapes him in Hyatt. It's like a 11-year-old. Then takes him on a yacht, rapes him on the yacht, and then sends him back. So that goes to show how much. Well, Hyatt, a middle class person can afford a room in Hyatt. Once you touch the yacht, that is a certain a lot of money behind these groups of people. I'm not sure if that's human trafficking or just a general pedophile ring. But I would say I don't think we've ever had a bust of a pedophile ring in this country.
We don't really have a lot of busts for sex crimes at all in this country, do we?
Well, we'll have the little one-off nasty old man rapists, but not.
But that's where the case is easy to solve, where it's like, I guess, a relative or something.
Well, yeah, the incest and such is very difficult because the family doesn't want
relative
you to
or or family friend, you know, but somebody that know the victim. But in terms of like actual human trafficking, where
if it's a Venezuelan girl who have no right to be in your upstairs, your bar, it's kind of obvious what it is. It's like very obvious. But incest and such is a little more harder to prove. You have to have DNA swabs and testimony and all that drama. But I would say what I am advocating for, one, like they mentioned in Trafficking in Persons report, to go back here, consider increasing NGO representation to the anti-trafficking task force. The NGOs would have counseled or helped the victims of a lot of these situations. And trafficking is not just importing Venezuelans. It's also like, there's also a lot of children going missing in this country, and they're being trafficked as well, or they may be trafficked just part-time. You ever see, like, there are a lot of stories where a young girl goes missing and then 3 days later, she went by a friend.
Yeah.
In my experience, not all of those is the young girl being truant and exploring her sexuality. I was in court to see a statutory rape case, and 1 minute it's like a 15-year-old. 1 minute she's in the witness box and she's talking about how all these men meeting girls after school in a house near the school, and 1 minute she's talking about that. So that's clearly a sex ring preying on young girls.
Right. And
the next minute she want to withdraw her case. So a lot of some of these cases are the young girl being foolish, and some of these cases are the girl was kidnapped, or the girl was solicited or seduced, or which all of those are legal activities to try and, I can't remember the term under the Children's Act, but like to seek to contact a child to procure them, to entice them into sexual activity or to meet with them. That is also
all that will be criminal, because what is the age of consent in Trinidad?
18,
right? So anybody in secondary school, that would be criminal.
Yeah, so all that is going on right now, and what happens is that when the family is too ashamed to pursue the case criminally, so the majority of these cases get swept under the rug. but we have rampant child sex trafficking, rampant pedophilia, rampant child sex rings, and it's being swept under the rug or ignored.
So what can we do about this? Besides, I guess the basic precautions.
Well, we need to advocate. Even when you take the case to court, we have a 2% conviction rate of rape in this country. That's how bad. So, of the cases that make it to court, 98% of the rapists walks free. So I'm sorry to say, like when some lawyers, like I see them in chat groups say, "Oh, I win my rape case, I win my rape case." You had a 98% chance to win the case, or it was really dismissed. So, yeah, some of those are good lawyers, but rape cases apparently easy to win in this country.
But why is that? They just don't have enough
A million
evidence?
technicalities, bad evidence. The witness gets fed up and withdraws the case halfway. If you like after the 10 years later, the victim wants to move on with their life, they're fed up. They're not going to be a good witness. The jury not going to believe them. Also, on a lot of these cases, is the only witness to the rape is the one victim. It's easy to discredit them.
Right. So it's more of a my word against yours.
Yes.
System point.
It was in this. We also need a lot more funding for before you get to court. A lot of these survivors have a lot of trauma, so you need to put them through a lot of psychological counseling. And there are NGOs like Rape Crisis and others, Organization for Abused and Battered Individuals, that try to support them, but the resources aren't what it should be. So to even help them enough that their mind is repaired enough to pursue the case, we need funding. It's called victim support. You need to take care of them first, let them be sane and feel safe enough to go to court and put people behind bars. And it needs a lot of money behind it.
And we have any NGOs doing that right now?
A lot. Rape Crisis Society, Organization for Abused and Battered Individuals, Victim Support Society.
You know what they should do? I'll get a list from you of all the NGOs afterwards, and I'll post it up wherever I have this video. I guess if anybody sees it, they could pass on the information, because I think that will be good information to have.
Yes, it is good information for survivors to have, that there is free counseling available.
Yeah, any help they could get would be good.
Wait, back to the previous point. I've also heard on through the grapevine and the grassroots people, we have a lot of pedophile rings operating in West Trinidad. And the story would be somebody goes to we have adult parties in this country where they have sometimes prostitutes, sometimes people coming, and there's
like swingers
and such. So somebody went to one of these parties thinking it's a regular adult party, and then he sees a lot of 12-year-olds and 13-year-old children, boys and girls, coming into the party, and then he starts to get concerned because this is not what he signed up for. Obviously, He's not a pedophile, and he decides to leave. But the classes of it's in West Trinidad, it's like upper class, very wealthy, powerful people behind these things, and they're not being caught. I've also heard of adult men being raped at some of these gatherings by these people wouldn't go and report it, not just because of the anti-LGBT sentiment in the country, it's also because the people who raped him were so powerful he doesn't want to touch them. So all of these things are happening, and a lot more needs to be done to solve these problems in this country.
Wow.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
That's a lot to take in.
You see me, all the pictures of me posting when I'm posting boxing and running, and I trying to make sure I could defend myself in this country.
What it is you doing? Kickboxing? Or so it looked like some jiu-jitsu as well?
Regular boxing. I used to do jiu-jitsu, but I'm not naturally, jiu-jitsu is 10 steps to armbar. So I'm not naturally that good with my body mechanics. And with time, I just decided I'm going to focus on boxing for now, so I can at least strike somebody and escape.
Yeah, because most people actually can't throw a good punch. So if you could throw a good punch, you're ready. I'd say
steps.
Better than 60% of people.
In the US, they have sting operations. You pose as a child online, you meet up the person, and then you just arrest them.
It was Chris Henson or somebody.
A lot of people do those.
They had a reality show about it. But yeah, I think definitely more needs to be done about the
And those are not hard to do, huh?
That's just it. It feels as though we're literally not doing anything. I feel if we actually...
We don't care enough.
Yeah, like if we actually put the effort, I'm sure we could make a big dent in this.
There's a non-profit group called Dog Justice in the UK. Is two private citizens, and they're the ones who go and pretend to be underage children on the internet. And then when they have a pedophile that wants to meet up, then they call the police to follow them to the location. And so private citizens, like the labor police people are actually willing to do these things, and the strategizing between the police service and like where's the strategy to deal with these people? There's little being done.
Yeah, I think we probably just waiting on somebody to make a report so they can make an arrest or something. And I'm not sure what resources they have anyway. So, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to fix in this country.
I think we could probably wrap up there.
Yeah, we could. So thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, well, it's good to have you on. Anybody that want to stick around, that watching this video, what I started doing, I started featuring up and coming artists. You know, so anybody that wants their music sort of exposed to more people, I'm just gonna expose it. So I guess anybody else that watching after the credits,
I think we should use the word promote. Expose sounds a bit more.
Promote, yeah. So I help people up and comers promote their music. Anybody that would like to can stay on and listen to Losing Sleep by Y from Royal Entertainment. Enjoy.
That's cool.
Burn your candles low. Let me in, baby. My heart is searching for you. Girl, you're driving me crazy, and I'm wanting more. Yes, I'm fighting to speak. Are you coming up? Babe, come on to me. Are you leaving me? Baby, tell me, for I am weak. I can hardly hear myself. I can't breathe. Yeah. I'm losing sleep. Take you out on a date. I hope it's not too late. I want to make you smile. You're the light of my life. Are you leaving me? Baby, tell me, for I am weak. I can hardly hear myself. I can't breathe. I'm losing sleep. Are you leaving me? Baby, tell me, for I am weak. I can hardly hear myself.